Young changemakers do not doubt for one moment that biodiversity can be restored, like the team at Reefs, whose modular clay-based reef systems, scientifically proven, bring back corals and marine life. They can already envision how every member of the LGBTQI+ community has their full human rights and mental health, like the team at Voda, a queer-led well-being app and ecosystem. They bring back mangrove forests along the coast of Kenya, like Youth Power. They eliminate single-use plastic, like Banlastic in Egypt, and they preserve indigenous knowledge in Brazil, like Melly Bees. They already see a world where inclusive workplaces for everyone are actually possible, like Virtualahan in the Philippines, who've supported thousands of neurodiverse and disabled people to find meaningful employment. It is not hard for them at all to imagine a world without hunger, like Food for All Africa, which was started by a local young chef and a group of youth in Ghana and is now one of West Africa's largest food banks. They can see and imagine this future, and they have absolutely no intention of stopping until they get there. Through the first Possibilists reports in 2021 and 2023, it became clear. Young changemakers and social entrepreneurs create some absolutely amazing and much needed impact, but they struggle. 2 years later, we have some updates for you. Some will certainly lift you up, some might sadden you a little, and some may even shock you. Together with my colleagues Miriam and Mubarak, it is my absolute great honor and pleasure to welcome you all today to the launch of the 2025 Possibilists Report. In 2020, us as representatives of the global support ecosystem realized beyond all our individual support programs and all the activities that we do, if we want to truly tackle the challenges that young innovators face, we can only do that through collaboration. The Possibilists today is over 20 of the world's largest social innovation networks, including Ashoka and Actors, Kofi Annan Foundation, Global Changemakers, We Are Family Foundation, and many, many more. To ensure diverse data, though, and in an effort to represent as many voices of young people from all kinds of backgrounds and countries, we also invited nearly 250 local and regional organizations from every part of the world to join this global effort. Our vision really is that of a global support ecosystem that is aligned and works together by a shared data-driven understanding of the needs that young changemakers have, and hopefully thereby creating the best possible conditions for their initiatives and themselves as people to thrive. We have some awesome partners on board for this, including the Vienna University of Economics and Business as our academic partner, Google.org and SAP as two long-term supporters of this effort, Berlin-based Rainbow Unicorn for the design and the visual identity of the Possibilists, as well as this time and this year, Playverto for the design and the interface of the actual survey. Before we jump into the 2025 report, which I know everyone is waiting for, we'd love to take a quick look back and share some of the actions that we've taken as a response to the insights from the 2021 and 2023 report. Miriam, from the Changemaker Exchange and Possibilists team, over to you.
Over the past 18 months, we've been thrilled to see so many different stakeholders, from support organizations to funders to changemakers, take actions informed by these insights, which were presented in the 2021 and 2023 reports. One of the key needs expressed by young changemakers in the 2023 study was more access to grant making, capacity building, and support programs. And as many of you know already, one of the actions that the Possibilists Alliance took collectively to try and address this need was to launch the Possibilists Directory, a freely accessible and growing repository of offers from more than 700 support organizations from around the world, so that we could directly accelerate access to these grant making and other resources as well. And if you haven't already, be sure to head over to the directory and check out all the different offers that are available to you and your organizations. But beyond these collective efforts, many funders and support organizations stepped up individually as well, citing their new approaches were heavily influenced by the Possibilists findings. So they introduced new funds, they integrated well-being into the scope of their work, and they made extra efforts for their programs to be more inclusive. As well as that, young changemakers from around the world have told us how helpful the report was to them. Some saying it helped them feel less lonely on their change-making journeys, that it helped validate some of the things that they were going through, or even that it opened their eyes up to the importance of well-being in the long-term sustainability of their work. Others said it's been a useful empirical reference point, which helps them advocate for more support, while others say it prompted a mindset shift, that changing things for the better isn't always their individual responsibility. It's that of the whole ecosystems. And we were blown away by the impact of the first two reports and are hoping that this 2025 iteration can bring new insights and help create the best conditions in the ecosystem to help changemakers thrive. And now on to what we're all here for, the 2025 report. So the study went live on the 13th of February and closed on the 6th of April. Participants were sourced via an open call on social media, as well as through networks of the Possibilists Alliance members and the network partners. We reached 2,261 changemakers from 110 countries. And of those, 1,043 of these respondents had leadership roles within their organizations and filled out 100% of the questions, which is the sample that we're going to focus on producing for these findings. So 16% of the respondents were aged between 14 and 20, 24 were between 21 and 25, 35% were between the ages of 26 and 30, and 25% were between the ages of 31 and 35. 48.5% of the respondents were female and 47.4% were male. 2.8% identified as non-binary and 1.3% preferred not to disclose their gender at all. And when it comes to the country of origin, 14% were from Europe, 9% were from Central and South America, 6% from the MENA region, 42% were from Sub-Saharan Africa, 19% from Asia and Pacific regions, and then 10% from North America. 45% of the respondents self-identified as marginalized, representing 7% increase from the previous year's study in 2023. This included changemakers coming from rural or underserved communities, changemakers who identify as women or a person of color, as a migrant or living with a disability, or those who identify as LGBTQIA+. 21% of respondents identify as Indigenous, and compared to global estimate, this percentage is notably high, highlighting significant representation of Indigenous voices in this sample. And now I'll hand over to Mubarak, my colleague, who will help us get a better picture of the kind of changemakers who responded.
Thank you, Miriam. We believe young people play a particularly important role in the transition to a social and green economy. For one, they're typically the ones most heavily affected, whether it is by the pandemic, youth unemployment, or the climate crisis. At the same time, youth is a demographic that creates an amazing amount of tangible solutions to our shared challenges. They truly hold industry leaders accountable, and also they build critical masses of movements like never in history. In 2025, 31.2% of respondents reported founding their initiatives within the past year, and this is a noticeable increase from 20.3% in the previous study. While these figures reflect a noticeable moment in time snapshot of a diverse sample, the data suggests that young changemakers are choosing to create their own paths to impact through launching new initiatives and cultivating the entrepreneurial energy. The number of youth impact leaders who identify as being in the scaling phase has nearly doubled since 2023. In the 2025 study, 23.5% of respondents reported that they are actively scaling their initiative, up from 12.1% in 2023. This sharp increase may signal a growing ambition among young changemakers to expand their reach and deepen their systemic impact despite ongoing challenges related to funding and burnout. Now, on average, initiatives have 1.9 paid employees, collectively employing about 1,995 changemakers, while on average, initiatives also have 2.7 unpaid volunteers working at their organization, with over 2,808 individuals contributing to the initiative's impact. Now, more than half of those surveyed said that they have products or services that would be suitable for corporate partnerships, and it's evident that young changemakers want to collaborate across sectors, and supporting them in establishing these corporate partnerships could be a mutually beneficial exchange. Now, the three main motivators for their work are 64% of them want to empower youths and other specific target groups for change making. 59% of them want to address urgent global issues like climate change, inequality, and 45% of them want to support their community. Now, the Young Changemaker survey are working across SDGs, with every single one being addressed. When asked to think about their work within the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs framework, the three main focus areas are tackling some of the most pressing issues that affect all of humanity.
Hello everyone, I am Dipana Thakal from Nepal. I am the founder and CEO of the Learning Fortress, an initiative which provides access to non-formal education and teaching and learning environment for the children and young people of the underserved and marginalized communities in Nepal. My main motto is to create systemic change by integrating the essence of localization through storytelling to amplify marginalized voices. Over to you, Carolyn.
Hi, my name is Caroline. I'm based in Vienna, Austria. I'm the founder of Newarn, the first smart marketplace for secondhand and unsold children's items in Europe. My main motivation is to close the loop on short-lived children's items and reduce clothing waste. Over to you, Jamil.
Hello everyone, my name is Jamal Brown. I'm from Jamaica. I'm a youth leader and activist and an opportunity connector. My work that I've founded is Opportunities for Caribbean Youth. I help Caribbean people to find jobs, scholarships, internships, and different opportunities globally. My main motivation for doing this is to reduce the complex issue of disparity that exists for us Caribbean people on a global scale by opening us up to global opportunities. Over to you, Grace.
Thanks so much, Jamal. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Grace. I'm from Kenya. I am the founder of EcoHydrate Solutions. As stated, I work in the intersection of climate and technology, helping create tools that help to track climate action, which is an area that I am very, very passionate about. I'm driven by the deep belief that the youth are the change makers and they should be the leaders and the architects of this systemic change. It's been a pleasure working as a council member, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Mubarak, and thank you, our speakers as well. So grateful to have you here, sharing about your work and later to be able to hear about your personal experiences too. I mean, at the end of the day, it's change makers like you who are at the heart of the work of the Possibilists. And I think it's equally important for us to stop and celebrate the impact of young innovators and activists like yourselves who are creating inspiring impact right now. And we'll hear from you all again in a moment, after we dig into some of the challenges that we surfaced in the 2025 report. So as we'll show in a moment, The change-making path is not at all easy. I'm sure many of us know this. And it's time for us to act to change that. But before we turn our attention to the challenging bits, we wanted to start with something positive. So interestingly, despite the many challenges, hardships, and uncertainties that changemakers face, life satisfaction among young changemakers is actually quite high. On a scale of 0 to 10, they rank at a 6.2 on average. And while overall satisfaction has declined slightly since the last survey, which was 7, and now we're at 6.2, this cohort continues to report well-being levels that significantly outpace global norms. And this is still, considerably higher than the global average, which is 5.6 as per the Global Happiness Index. So perhaps working in line with their purpose and values and pursuing a passion plays a larger role in their overall life satisfaction. I mean, I know it does for me. But even though overall life satisfaction is relatively high in change making is an easy road. When asked to identify the single greatest hurdle to their success, 22.9% of respondents mentioned a lack of personal financial sustainability. Less than 1 in 10 young social innovators can live off their social change ventures, and only 7% of all young change makers can cover all their necessary expenses through their work. This is almost 3% less than in 2023, meaning their financial situation has worsened. And 42% of them cannot compensate themselves for their work on their initiatives at all. And to gain further insight on their financial health, this year we asked whether or not they depend on their work as a source of income. 48.3% have no other sources of income, i.e. they do depend on their work as their main source of income, while 51.2% have other sources of income. Most strikingly, among those who are entirely dependent on their initiative for income, a third of them, so 33.9%, are not earning anything, highlighting a serious and concerning income gap. Also, women are less likely to be able to remunerate themselves than men. Respondents who identify as marginalized are significantly less likely to be able to compensate themselves compared to those who are non-marginalized as peers. And age also plays a role too. So the older in age a changemaker is, the more likely they are to be receiving compensation. 19.1% of respondents mentioned coming from a disadvantaged background as their single greatest hurdle to their success of their initiative. And besides coming from a disadvantaged background and burnout, which we'll talk about shortly, another 17.4% mentioned juggling various responsibilities when they were asked what makes it most difficult for you personally to successfully work on your initiative. 79% of respondents have other professional commitments, i.e. another job or are studying in addition to the work on their initiative. The fourth challenge is around well-being and burnout. So 1 in 3 changemakers, 33.1% in the study, are experiencing some form of burnout. These numbers have significantly improved since 2021, when 59% of social innovators in the Possibilists study reported having experienced different degrees of burnout since they started working on their initiative. But compared to the data from 2023, burnout is up again from 1 in 4 to 1 in 3. Whether the numbers have improved or gotten worse, 1 in 3 experiencing burnout is still 1 in 3 too many. And also, females reported having experienced burnout a lot more often than their male counterparts. So 35.8% of females versus 24.3% of males. So might speak to the invisible labor that some women are experiencing. This year, we also asked people, how are they coping with this stress? And 33% said they cope through physical activity. Another 33% said they cope through social interactions. 29% said they take regular breaks, and 25% use mindfulness and meditation techniques to cope with the exhaustion and the pressure. And while we're glad on one hand that the changemakers seem to have tools at their hands to cope with these pressures, on the other hand, we also know that some of these pressures, stresses, and burnout is caused by systemic factors and inequalities, something that we as an ecosystem have to look at addressing collectively and not just put the onus on them as individuals.
Thank you, Miriam. As we've just heard, young changemakers tackle some of the world's most pressing challenges, but the condition in the ecosystem makes it difficult for them and their teams to thrive and to deepen or even scale their impact. I'd love to bring back their voices now to share with us how these results resonate with their own lived experiences. To start, may I ask you all to just give your high level impression? Do the results surprise you? And what sticks out for you and what resonates the most? Vipana, you have the floor.
The results are both validating and deeply thought provoking. The rise in burnout among young change makers isn't actually surprising. It reflects the immense emotional and logistical strain many of us face while striving for impact with limited resources. Yet, what stands out most is the resilience and determination of change makers who continue to push forward despite these challenges. The increase in reported burnout among change makers is actually deeply concerning. Many impact leaders, particularly those working in underserved communities, are navigating the intense demands with limited resources, often pushing personal well being aside for the sake of their mission. From what I've observed, burnout isn't just about workload, it's about the emotional toll of sustaining hope in systems that feel resistant to change. Change makers are often expected to be endlessly resilient, but that expectation itself can be harmful. While support networks and conversations around mental health have improved, there's still a huge need for more structured well-being initiatives to ensure sustainability in this work. Over to you, Carolyn.
So the positive first, I think it's really exciting that SDG 4, so quality education, is represented so largely with 37.8%, because I really think that this is where the change really begins. I think something that stood out to me was that 22.9% report a lack of personal financial stability, and half of change makers have no other source of income. So in my opinion, this is one of the most pressing issues that affects young change makers, and something that should be addressed, because it's also very closely tied, in my experience, to burnout. Over to you, Jamel.
Okay, so the survey and the data collected from the survey was really surprising to me, because I get to see a full, awesome capture of the data that young people are actually going through, their different issues, their different problems, and how we can come together as a support system, a consortium, to solve these issues. And I've seen what surprised me the most from this survey is that the fact that nearly half of the persons that responded are coming from marginalized groups, which is a 7% increase from the previous survey, which resonates with me as a person coming from an inner city community, from a third world country, where I'm too familiarized with persons being marginalized, being put down, feeling voiceless, feel like their voice are not enough to solve the issues. And I've also seen where there's a twist and a turn in the survey to highlight that young people are now taking action. They're coming up with their own initiatives to solve these global problems, these global issues of marginalization. And I love the fact that we're not just the future, but we're now the present, and we're taking action to solve the issues that are affecting us in this global crisis, whether it's climate anxiety, whether it's mental health issues. Young people are trying to cope with it. And also financial insecurity of not just solving the issue, but we have seen far too many when change makers are trying to come up with solutions to solve the issue, where they're facing financial insecurity. And it's also been highlighted in the survey where a lot of persons, 48.3% of change makers, would have dictated that no, they didn't have other form of income to thrive on besides your income of being a change maker within the space. And I love that the data captures so many things. And when I'm going through it, I'm like, I don't have anything else to add, because the data is actually there. I'm actually seeing what young people are actually going through as change makers. And I know I'll turn over to you, Grace.
Thank you so much, Jamel. I agree with what the previous speakers have mentioned, and I just want to add voice on that. The results that the survey presented were actually not so surprising to me, because it's something that I have felt personally, the increase in burnout over time, and also have seen in my peers, especially among the young African change makers who carry the weight of being global change makers and the global expectations that you as an African, we want to see you lead. But that also comes with a weight, the emotional turmoil, the mental turmoil, that you have to consistently stretch yourself even beyond your limits just to continue proving that you deserve to be called a change maker. Now, what actually impressed me about this survey is that now there is data, because we do not believe a lot of things because it is not backed by evidence, it's not backed by science. But now through this Possibilists report, you are able to see that this is actually the situation on the ground, because these were responses given by young change makers themselves. And actually, for me, it sounded like a calling and probably a cry for help, that we do need to look at probably the mental health of our change makers, the emotional health of our change makers, because they carry the weight sometimes and in underpaid positions or even unpaid positions, but they have to be organizers, they have to be caregivers, they need to be troubleshooters and stretching themselves even through crisis mode, but they still get to do it. It also gets me to actually give a round of applause to all the young change makers out there, because they are doing some real work. Although these results are also alarming, but also shows the dedication that these change makers have to the community. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Grace. And some of the insights that you just shared feed into the next two-part question that I have for you all. And we've seen that there's been a rise in this year compared to 2023, and the number of changemakers who reported having experienced burnout. Now, does that resonate or align with your observations of fellow changemakers? Because you all, one way or the other, you work with other changemakers from underserved communities. Is there another reality beyond the data that was presented that you'd like to bring to this space? Thank you.
Um, Indeed, like the whole study in itself was not so surprising to me, because it's something which I can relate to utmost. Like, that's the reality of many young change makers, including myself, who have been working day and night on the ground, like not even separating their personal and professional life. There's a very thin line to it. And because of that, the tools in their mental health is something which a lot of young cheese makers have been battling with. And having said that, I think there's a lot of like realities such as limited access to resources, or maybe opportunities which are not so often grabbed, or limitations which do not let us grab those. And also, like, trying to match up with the expectations from others as change makers, like you got to do something for your community, yet you have so less resources on reality, which make that thing a possibility, or something in real, right? So I think in order to match all these things in coordination, a change makers tend to have very heavily impact on their mental health, and the burnout does impact them both personally and professionally, leaving a huge toll on a lot of change makers, especially from underserved community, as I mentioned earlier as well. Yeah, over to you, Carolyn.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, like 2 points that I really see in my community of change makers here is, again, I think I already highlighted this in what I said for the last question, but this like, yeah, not being paid for the work you do. And on the one hand, of course, this is a financial problem of like not being able to cover, or not knowing where your income will come from in the next month. But also I feel like it's a problem because it doesn't make you feel very appreciated. And I think that is something, or even seen, and that is something that can drain you a lot, because you feel like you're working day and night, you're not giving up, you're pushing, and not only in your own project, but trying to support other change makers, working together, doing other projects, and then not being paid, not being seen, not being appreciated, I think can really lie heavily on you. And then the second thing that I've noticed here in Austria and here especially is that also just the developments in the world, and also just some of the climate info is just increasing this climate anxiety, and also this feeling of being powerless. Even though, of course, we're trying to be powerful and take charge and push, but sometimes it's just very, very heavy to then see what's happening in the world. Over to you, Jamel.
So for me, I would have seen, as it experienced to burnout as it relates to change maker, I would have observed that there is an intersection of realities, different realities for different people, and many persons often go through emotional exhaustion and a lack of motivation for the work that you're doing because it's not being appreciated, it's not being recognized, it's not being paid for. So I have seen a lot of change makers working, especially in my country where change makers are not normally paid or compensated for their work. It's normally if you get a local recognition or a stipend, be grateful. You can't really complain in the space because if you complain, you might lose your position, you might lose your recognition, you might lose your voice on the issue that you're trying to combat within your space. So as change makers, it's like, okay, I want to complain about not getting enough resources, but at the same time, if I complain, it will cause a lot of issues. So I remain voiceless and powerless, and that can also contribute to burnout because you're trying your best with the little that you have. And I've also seen many persons using little resources that they have to no resources to try to pull something big out of nothing. And it has always been the case with change makers trying to solve issues with nothing that they have to try to do something as big as possible. So in my experience, I've seen burnout also being affected as it relates to financial insecurity, being from a marginalized community, because I was from a marginalized community, and for years I've been trying to help persons, but breaking into the change making space itself is very hard if you're from a marginalized community, because they believe that they're the ones at the top should be the heroes and the saviors of you at the bottom. So you can't be a change maker because you're coming from a marginalized community. So that also contributes to burnout because I'm not getting recognized, I'm not getting the opportunity to break into certain spaces. And also burnout can be direct and indirect. It can be, okay, I'm overworking myself to solve a particular issue, or it can be indirect in the sense where I'm trying to break into a particular space and I'm trying my best and I'm still not being recognized or given the accessibility into breaking into that space. And I believe the survey covered so many things as it relates to it, to persons trying to juggling multiple aspects like juggling work, juggling responsibilities to become a change maker within the space because sometimes it doesn't pay them. And I've seen it, as it relates to the study, as it relates to my reality as a change maker, and also I don't think I have anything else to add because I feel like I feel like the survey covered so much for change makers, the issues that they're going through, and all we can look at the issues, look at the data, and see the problem that is currently happening to come up with proper and effective solutions. Not solutions that can happen now in a standalone moment, but solutions can happen over time that can help the change making community as it goes.
Thank you all so much for sharing your insight. This has been wonderful. And we'll get back to you again in just a moment when speaking about the recommendations for actions. And we can all take that going forward.
Okay, thank you very much, and apologies for the audio issues. Dialing in so many people from so many places around the world, it's a bit unavoidable that it might be a little sketchy at times, but I hope you're still with us because we are coming to a very exciting part, which is the needs of the change makers. We'd love to bring everyone's attentions to the actual needs of the change makers, and let's have a look at what they have to say. If you feel a little bit overwhelmed by this next slide, that is in fact the core of the message here. There isn't really any one specific need, but changemakers consider many things important at the same time. To make this at least a little bit more digestible, for the report, we clustered the needs into 4 groups this year, with needs related to collaboration ranking the highest, meaning access to people in places of power and decision-making, to collaborate with other changemakers, and so on. Followed by personal development needs, and financial and impact-related needs sharing a 3rd place. With 91.6%, the highest ranking need is to gain recognition and legitimacy for their work. This shows that the contribution of young changemakers are still not widely seen and recognized, which many have actually mentioned in the little interviews that just took place. We now want to bring the spotlight to something particularly worrying in this year's sample. The data reveals that many young changemakers in the Possibilists sample are actually facing some very severe material and nearly existential hardship. Nearly half of the people in the sample have had periods in the last 12 months where they've gone without enough food. More than half have had to forego necessary medical treatment, and 65% of them report at least periods without any cash income. Another 40% had times when they felt unsafe from crime at their home, and 23.9% experienced periods of homelessness. Compared to the global findings from the World Values Survey, this sample highlights that young changemakers, and often their families and their communities, their friends and the places that they're a part of, struggle to meet even the most basic needs. These realities, in all honesty, challenge a little the common assumption that social or impact entrepreneurs can afford to earn a little less in the early years, to do this on a volunteer basis, or to just come by with little means. For many, this is in fact not a temporary financial sacrifice, but an ongoing struggle to meet even the most basic existential needs, and I think a real call for action. Switching gears a little, and given the omnipresence of artificial intelligence this year, we included a special deep dive into how young changemakers use AI and what their perspectives are on this topic. Of the 1,000 participants of the global survey, 922 from, again, 110 countries also participated in the additional AI deep dive. 65% of the surveyed changemakers say they either use AI daily or at least weekly explicitly to support the work they do as changemakers, which clearly shows that the use of AI has entered the world and work of young changemakers. It's really interesting, though, to see that the differences among regions are really significant. Now, this cannot be generalized, but we talk about this very sample, but it is quite striking. 49% of the changemakers who say they use AI daily come from the MENA region, but for example, only 11% of those using it daily come from North America. While young changemakers use AI for their work, they're also quite conscious and considerate and to some extent concerned about it on a broader level. Only 1 in 4 of them trust AI, and 67% of them say they either agree or strongly agree that they have some sort of ethical concerns about the use of AI. And another 64% say they agree or strongly agree that they have concerns about the environmental impact of AI, showing quite a diverse picture of, on the one hand, using it and really benefiting, but also having some very valid concerns, something that I believe we as the ecosystem have to address. We didn't stop here though, but included lots of other questions, and I'd love to encourage you to later head to the report and to the deep dive and dive a little deeper into the results. Just to highlight a few, despite these concerns that I mentioned, 69% of them say they either agree or strongly agree that AI can provide new economic opportunities for them and their country. But 26% say they either agree or strongly agree that they lack the technical knowledge to use AI properly. And again, another call to the ecosystem and partners and anyone supporting young people out there to look at this and act on it. 69% of them say they either agree or strongly agree that there is a lack of access to mentorship in regards to AI. And ultimately, 58% of them say they either agree or strongly agree that AI ultimately will benefit humankind. We also asked them, how exactly are you using AI to support your work as changemakers? And the answers most mentioned include around 18% for brainstorming and creative support. 16% of people have mentioned things like organization and planning. Another 16% have mentioned they use it for research. 15% use it for text production. And a heads up for all the support organizations and employers out there, they also use it to write their applications, which I don't think anyone can blame them for, but that is something that has been mentioned quite a lot as well, at around 6 to 7%. Now, we rightly celebrate the impact of young changemakers that they're creating and take inspiration from them, and we rightfully do so. But as we've seen, the path they choose for the good of all of us is not at all easy. Two organizations who've really been at the forefront of supporting changemakers and support organization, this entire ecosystem, as well as the Possibilists, are SAP and Google.org, both partners of the Possibilists. I'd love to now use the chance to invite to this virtual stage Jennifer Beeson, the Global Director of Impact Entrepreneurship and Social Procurement and Corporate Responsibility at SAP. Jen, knowing you for quite a while and being really grateful for all your support, I wonder, why have you and SAP chosen to support social entrepreneurs and innovators as a bit of a key focus of your corporate giving and citizenship strategies in the past few years? Can you share a few of those considerations with us, please? And welcome to this live stream.
Thanks, Matthias. Thanks for having us. This is a really exciting opportunity. And if you don't know why we are excited to support, having just listened to the changemakers on this call, I'm already more jazzed than I was before I saw the findings. SAP is a technology company, and we were founded by 5 innovators more than 50 years ago. Our purpose is to help the world run better and improve people's lives. And the way that we do that is through the power of business and supporting leaders who are changing the way the world works. This work is an incredible opportunity. And Grace, I think you shared it when you talked to really harness the data that we need to give us a bias towards action. How might we invest in this space so that we can accelerate and scale the work of incredible leaders like those on this call, those that responded to this survey, and all over the world? We collectively have the power to make a difference, make a change, and now we know where we can put our resources to do that.
Thank you so much, Jen. You've already been part of this effort in 2021 and 23, and now for the 3rd edition, the 2025 Global Report. I wonder, how do the results of this year resonate with you? Do you see any differences? Has anything stuck with you? What keeps your mind and your heart busy as you dive into the results of this year's report?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. So I'm super jazzed about a couple of things. One of the partners that's part of the Alliance and one of SAP's partners is We Are Family Foundation. And one of the things that they talked about in a companion study that was released last year was that problems that span a generation requires leadership that does too. So seeing that one of the opportunities that we can invest in is that more than 90% of respondents say that collaboration and getting in spaces that they wouldn't have access to is an opportunity. That is something that SAP can help with, right? We are working with 97 of the world's top 100 greenest companies. How can we help young leaders get in those boardrooms? How can we create collaboration to really change things, to look differently at business? I think that's a super cool opportunity. When I heard that 50% of the respondents out there said they have goods and services that can be sold to a corporation, imagine the power if we can help shift the trillions of dollars of procurement spend to organizations that are putting people and planet first. And then maybe even the most exciting thing, Matthias, is looking at the power of the use of AI. If we can put AI to work for good for us in an ethical manner, in a way that, again, prioritizes people and planet, imagine how we can scale the work that's already being done.
Thank you so much, Jen, for your thoughts. Any last things you want to leave us with, maybe about current activities or future plans that you have for anything that is up your end?
Maybe I think a couple of exciting things. One, I know that one of the other partners that's part of the Alliance Watson Institute is going to be coming out with a learning report on the power of impact-led procurement for young innovators. So thinking about how can we take the 50% of those out there that have those goods and services, how do we create access for you to sell and expand your work? I think so. Look later on in a couple of months, you'll see that report coming out. I think also something that's really exciting is, frankly, is the mapping of all of the opportunities on the Possibilists website. If you are looking for a way to engage this incredible ecosystem of changemakers, look no further than this landing page. This is a place where we come and we are looking to create collaboration opportunities across the board. So just really excited to continue leveraging the data to change the way things work. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to support you in helping the world run better.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks for being with us, and thank you for your support. It's really, really appreciated. Jen from SAP, and a very long-term supporter of all the Possibilists efforts. Thank you. The saying goes that raising a child needs a village. We believe supporting a changemaker needs an ecosystem. And as we've seen today, it really is high time to act, which is why already in 2023, through deep conversations with young changemakers from around the world and members of the Possibilists Alliance, we've developed a set of 12 recommendations, each for 4 key groups of stakeholders: support organizations, funders, policymakers, and young changemakers themselves. And because we always wanted the Possibilists to be far more than just a study and a report, we've actually designed and created a super practical to-do list, so to say, for anyone willing to support changemakers. You can download these recommendations on the website, in the report, and on other places on the site, and use them, for example, to do a bit of a self-assessment of your organization, of your work supporting young social entrepreneurs. Go through them with your teams, with your boards, or by yourself. Over to Mubarak for a last little round of insights from the speakers. Thank you. Mubarak, over to you.
Thank you, Matthias. Before we wrap things up and share a few more cool practical tools with you that we've created, I'd love to ask our 4 speakers on stage again, Bipana, Caroline, Jamel, and Grace. I'd like to ask you, if you had 1 to 2 recommendations for either what funders, policymakers, or support organizations should start or stop doing, what would it be? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mubarak. I think like my first recommendation for funders and policymakers would be to prioritize unrestricted and trust-based funding for changemakers. It's a high time that the policymakers and funders come together and create that safe space for changemakers like us to at least prioritize the need of funding, especially trust-based funding, which essentially is a need of today. Along with that, I feel like too often like the rigid funding models create barriers for adaptability and innovation, limiting impact of young change makers that they can achieve. So I think if we address this issue somehow or less, this thing can be addressed. Secondly, I urge the support organizations to actively invest in change maker well-being. With the study as well, it's so much relevant, and it's such such a huge issue when it comes to burnout among impact leaders, which is very rising and sustainable, and the systemic change which needs to happen as well should be addressed. So I feel as if like those who are driving the chains, if those are the people who are in threat or who are going through the burnout think about others who actually need those kind of thing in the community. So if we think in that way and provide support for change makers, then at least some relief can be provided from the support organization side as well. Along with that, the initiatives like mentorship, mental health resources, and financial security problems should be integral to support such structures. And I believe like with the Possibilists report, the study that we have all gone through as well, the resilience the change makers have shown is really amazing. And I wish and hope all the best for the change makers coming forward, moving forward, be more resilient, and together we are in this for change making. Over to you, Carolyn.
Thank you so much. Yeah, to add on to this, I think something that is very helpful is just spreading awareness, not just shining light on the change makers and the work itself, but also to the issues we're working on. Because I feel like sometimes, or one of the bottlenecks of my work is that there's just so much basic information, especially also about like climate topics, that people don't know. So I think, especially related to environmental problems, it's important to work together and to shine light on the topics and problems, because at the end of the day, they concern us all, right? Yeah, and second point from my side, I think would be that no one should expect changemakers to do work for free, even if it's for a good cause. I feel like changemakers are doing what they do out of a deep belief, and this sometimes leads to doing work, or often leads to doing work for free. And trying to solve many problems at once. And as the report showed, half can't pay themselves a salary yet. So sharing paid opportunities with your network of changemakers is helpful and can also be a great way of supporting them. And last but not least, I think sharing networks with each other is one of the most powerful things we can do. Over to you, Jamel.
So my first recommendation is for funders, policymakers, and support organizations to invest more in innovative solutions for young change makers going through different issues. And I believe that they should also invest in underdeveloped areas. We often go to the big areas such as climate change, mental health. What about the different areas that I'm working on as a young innovator, change maker within the space? And my area getting more resources, more support there? So persons, organizations, investors should look towards the underdeveloped areas to support them more as it regards being a change maker. And my second recommendation is to take the survey, the data that was collected from the survey, more seriously. I need policymakers, funders, and support organizations to come together to have a call for action, so that they can support young change makers more globally. I feel like when we talk about supporting change makers, we often overlooked different locations, geographical locations, such as the Caribbean, such as the Middle East. We need to look more into different areas and different sections of the world to support different change makers from different places. We can't just focus on the big places or the big areas. We need to look at both the small and the big areas, so we can support all change makers in their different issues, in their different problems, and how we can come up with innovative solutions to solve their crisis. I believe that all change makers right now are going through some form of crisis, whether it's financial insecurity, or they're struggling in different areas while working, so that they can work on their change maker needs. I need more support for change makers moving forward. Now, moving on to Grace.
Thanks so much, Jamal, and sorry for breaking for a bit during the webinar. We had some issues. So to answer the question on what would I recommend from my own personal perspective after being part of the council and also in the process that the Possibilists has taken us through, much can be said, but I'm going to put it in 3 points. Number one, let your investment be consistent and flexible. One of the biggest crises that causes the mental stress would be, oh, in 1 month, my funder is going to walk away from me and I don't know what to do. Will that cause my startup to crash down? And that comes with a lot of emotional and mental stress. Do not just fund the project, but also try to also consider the core operations, as it has just been said by Carol. You should also not let the change makers work for free. It's really tough work. They're really putting themselves out there. Please do not stop funding and do not stop advertising. Whether you are a funder or a policymaker, you have space for you to actually engage with these young people, understand them, and be flexible to their needs. Number two, please do not design solutions for communities without them. Follow the footsteps that the Possibilists has taken, and I'm glad to be saying this on this call, because they actually understand. They take time to pass out a survey and understand what do the actual users need, not what do I think they need when I have closed my office. It is what does the ground actually say they need. So please center the change makers in your design of policies, in your design of the support. Maybe you want to start a funding support. Please inform them, or also even call them and just know what are the areas, what do you think is the gap. And in case you don't have funding to do that, please just read the Possibilists report 2025. I think it has highlighted key areas that actually change makers need help in. This report is actually a cry for help, and it has data to prove anything that you want to push for. And lastly, number three, and the simplest, please be kind. Be kind to your funding recipients. Be kind to the young change makers. They are just trying. They are trying to figure it out as they're going. They're trying to know the right from wrong as they're going. We do not have a Bible. We do not have a textbook for this. We're really trying to know what is left, what is right. And actually, for example, in the technology space, we have to actually work 10 times harder to try and catch up with some continents as we're here in Africa. We have to stretch ourselves across different roles. Sometimes these change makers are only one person in a whole organization, and they have to be HR, they have to be human resource, they have to be procurement, and they have to do all of these roles as they stretch themselves, trying to keep their mental health, sane, and trying to keep everything stable, trying to run operations. And it is really, really not as easy as we think. So please be kind. Our policymakers, be kind. Our funders, be kind. And change makers amongst yourselves in the communities that you have, kindly be kind to each other and support each other. This will be my recommendations to all of these different groups, and hoping that from this report, you will see the evidence and the data to back up any of the support you want to come up with.
Thank you so much, Grace. And I'd like to pass it on to Matthias for the final bit of the launch.
Thank you so much, Mubarak. I almost feel like Grace's words and those of her fellow speakers were the perfect summary. So what remains for me to really say is that we are super excited to share that the Possibilists Report 2025 is now live at possibilists.org/2025 report. Maybe give it another 5 or 10 minutes. We have to take off the password, reload the page, but it should be available to the public in the next few minutes. Now, final word, changemakers around the world, as we know, create amazing impact, but we've also seen they struggle. Each one of us, I believe, can take action to help them thrive for their own well-being, as well as, at the end of the day, the good of all of us. They show us every day that the dominant collective narrative that things cannot be fixed, that it is too late, is in fact a lie. And instead, they write the story of a world that's kinder, caring, more just, and more human. And all they need is a bigger pen. Thank you so much, everyone, and hope to see you dive into the results of the report. Thank you so much.